Children, 4th September 1920, another important day in the freedom struggle of India. The Indian National Congress was in session in Calcutta, and a decision was taken to launch Non-Cooperation Movement against the British. See, after the 1919 Jallianwala Bagh event, people had got charged. They were not ready to accept the British as they were. General Dyer, a mad police head, he had been the instrument. He massacred people there. And that triggered a negative sentiment all over the nation against the British. The country saw the cruel face of the British. The British would smash any activity or event or rally or meeting if it goes against their mercenary interests. They had come to India to make wealth, to make money. So, the Indian National Congress at Calcutta decided to launch nationwide non-cooperation movement. As the word itself says, don't cooperate with the British. Stay away. Don't believe them. Don't make friendship with them. Don't join them. Keep them away. Ignore them. Neglect them. This is the theme of the non-cooperation movement. As the word says, no cooperation. We won't cooperate with you. You are not our masters. The main reason had been the brutal killings of Jallianwala Bagh. The massacre of Jallianwala Bagh had been instrument in getting this non-cooperation movement launched. So people started opposing British rule. There was insistence everywhere that the Rowlatt Act, the cruel Rowlatt Act, the inhuman Rowlatt Act has to be withdrawn by the British government. The pressure was so much, the British government stood on a confused state. Reforms in the political system. The political system has to change. Things cannot go on these lines. People insisted on a lot of political changes, which would lead ultimately to Purna Swaraj, complete Swarajya. Now, what was the main program? Now, it's all right. Theoretically, we say non-cooperation movement has to be launched. So, what directions would you give to the people to follow in the next coming days? The leaders had to streamline all those. Number one, boycott schools. Don't attend British schools. If your children had been going there, stop going now. Stop going, attending the colleges, British colleges. Lawyers were told, don't attend British courts. Don't attend. See, what a big decision to boycott British educational institutions and British judicial system, the courts. 2, boycott elections. The British had made room for a few representatives of India to sit in the assembly. They become a part of the assembly, sit in the assembly and participate in the discussions there and even take part in lawmaking. That's the beginning. There was a controversy whether this is the right thing to be done or not, but Mahatma Gandhi said, boycott elections. Don't go to those assemblies. Stay away. Don't become a party to decision making because they are not worth it. So all the elections to these legislatures, the British-led legislatures, they were boycotted. That is, as per the 1919 Act, the elections had to take place everywhere, and the Indians had to take an active part in it and fill up those reservations meant for Indians. So now that part is boycotted. But remember, C.R. Das and Motilal Nehru did not agree with those. C.R. Das and Motilal Nehru, they said, everything is fine, we could have boycotted everything, but not the legislatures. Because legislatures are a platform where we can go and raise our voice once again. That would strengthen our non-cooperation movement. We should not have stopped going to those platforms and raising our voice, raising the voice of dissent. Okay, we will come to that later. Number 3. Whatever honors and medals Indians have got, they should return them all. Don't keep any. Return all honors and medals you have received from the British. Number 4. Nominated members. Members who have been nominated to the legislatures, British officers, British councils, resign. You resign, come out. See, this is total non-cooperation. Boycott all government functions. You may get invitations to go and attend. Don't go. All those functions organized by the British government, the British officers, the British machinery should be boycotted. Boycott. Last one, very important one. Boycott foreign goods. They used to take cotton from here, convert them into milk cloth, bring back by ships and sell here. That's a big business, roaring business. Boycott all foreign goods. If you have any foreign goods with you, bring them to the street, put them in a heat and burn them. Consign them to flames. We don't want to keep anything foreign in our houses. We don't want to buy them too. So boycott foreign goods. In Bombay, Madras, Calcutta, Ahmedabad, Delhi, everywhere flames went up. People brought all foreign goods, put them out. The British government was in shudders. What's happening? They were not understanding. Can there be a situation where India raises to this level? That too, the person who is heading the entire movement is one who has stood for truth and non-violence, Satya and Ahimsa. So, a lot of encouragement, push came for handlooms now. People started purchasing handloom cloth made in India. Khadi got the support. Khadi got a big push. That's what Gandhiji wanted. See, this is hitting two birds at a time with a single bullet. Then, unity. Hindus and Muslims came together. In this non-cooperation movement, the question whether somebody is a Hindu or Muslim was not there. Khilafat movement had been supported by Hindus here. So Muslims came all out supporting the non-cooperation movement. This movement became internationally very significant. No country had exhibited the strength of truth and non-violence to such an extent. There were no killings. No stone was hurled at any British office. No Britisher was hit or shot or killed. Everything was quiet. It was all in the policy, methodology in which we started opposing the British tooth and nail. What are the major developments here in India? I told some people, a section of people were unhappy with Gandhiji's decision of keeping away from the British legislatures. Mainly, the two great persons were Motilal Nehru and Chittaranjan Das, C.R. Das. They said what Gandhiji did was not proper. This we should not have done. Even Rajendra Prasad, he too left legal practice. Chittaranjan Das had legal practice, he was a great lawyer. He too resigns and comes out. Motilal Nehru was a legal crusader. He resigned and came out. Rajendra Prasad came out. Many national institutions, new national institutions, they sprung up. Kashi Vidyapita is the well-known Kashi Vidyapita today. It got evolved then at this juncture. When all the British colleges and schools are closed, we need some indigenous colleges, no? Where Indians can go and study. Kashi Vidyapita, Gujarat Vidyapita, Bihar Vidyapita, then Amelia Academic Center. All these took shape. It was at that time. Indigenous educational centers, they got established. So Jamia Millia was a Muslim organization. The Muslims took lead. That too came into establishment. Rabindranath Tagore, I told you, he returned all his medals and titles. Knighthood, that he returned to the British government. Liberal donations, Congress started collecting money. This is a huge event. A big job. Needed lot of money. So Congress went with a request demand to people to support. And donations came in a huge quantity. See, that shows how people were very particular that this non-cooperation movement should be successful. Under no circumstances we were ready to submit. So foreign clothes were burnt everywhere. Visit of the Prince of Wales to India, he was to come here. It was opposed. Any nation would be happy when the prince was to come. But India said, we are not prepared. We don't want to welcome him. He is an unwelcome guest. Let him not come to India. We oppose it. Wherever he goes, we will show our dissent, our disapproval of the steps taken by the British government. So what were the impacts? Let's see. This non-cooperation movement, what impact did it have on India? For the first time, women starting coming out of the houses in large numbers in support of Gandhiji. Women never used to take part in these public meetings and rallies. They started coming out, holding processions, dissents, protests, hartals. That was a big change in India. Women started taking active part in the national movement. Freedom movement became people's movement thereby. 50% are women. Not that everyone came out, but large number of women were supported. They were encouraged to come out by leaders, and they did come out. The national movement, the call for which was given by a few leaders, it became a people's movement now. Wherever you see thousands of people coming to the streets and saying Bharat Mata ki Jai, Mahatma Gandhi ki Jai. They raised slogans asking the British to give Swarajya, give freedom, take back the Rowlatt Act. So the seeds of freedom have got sown now. Seeds of freedom have got sown in the name of the non-cooperation movement. It entered the villages too. These movements were confined to towns and cities. Now it started entering villages too. And along with this, some social movements too started. One main movement that we have to enlist is fight against untouchability. Gandhiji felt this is the right time. Hindus and Muslims have come together. let us bring the scheduled groups of India who are not participating in any of the general events. They too should come. With open hands, they should be made to enter the general masses. They should become a part and parcel of the Indian public. So untouchably, lot of steps were taken. And these untouchables were called by Mahatma Gandhiji as Harijans. You are not outcasts. You are not thrown out of society. You are the children of God, he said. Harijan. Hari is Vishnu. You are Vishnu's children. Come on, join us. Again, another big social movement in India. As this was going on, the country was burning and everything was going as per the calculated steps and incidents took place in Uttar Pradesh. I spoke of Jallianwala Bagh then, which gave a big turn to the Indian freedom movement. Now, a movement which was expected to be one of non-violence and truth, it had a great beating because of the incidents that took place in Uttar Pradesh. The place was Chauri Chaura. Chauri Chaura. Police were staying inside a police station. They had closed the windows. Through the gaps there, they were placing rifles and shooting at innocent people, threatening the innocent people. And around 3,000 people had gathered. It was 1922, year 1922, February 4th. February 4th. They saw the bullets coming from their police station. There were 22 policemen inside. The crowd lost their patience. They went and surrounded the police station and they torched it. They torched it. They burnt it down. They burned down the police station. And all the 22 policemen who were inside, they were torched to death. They were charred to death. It was a big shock. We were speaking of non-violence, ahimsa. Gandhiji was very particular that the entire movement should be one of non-violence. We will not harm the British. He was very particular. But what has happened? 22 policemen were charred to death as the police station of Chauri and Chaura. There are two villages actually, Chauri Chaura. The names have been put together, it's called Chauri Chaura. There was one police station for the two villages. So the police station was not named as Chauri Chaura police station. It was burnt down. And this came as a big shock. It's a question of morality now. Are we moral? Have we done the right thing? Can a country, a nation of Buddha and Gandhiji, think of torching a police station and killing the innocent policemen ultimately? They were doing their job, duty. They might have got instructions. No one knows. So the misconduct of the people around, that came under a big question. And Gandhiji put his head in shame. This should not have happened in my country. Gandhiji said, I am withdrawing non-cooperation movement. The non-cooperation movement that's going on in the entire country will come to a halt, he said. I am withdrawing it. See, what a great fighter. He did not feel happy. He was sorry that these policemen were killed. So the non-cooperation movement came to a close. The violent uprising of Chauri Chaura brought a culmination point to the non-cooperation movement in the country. Gandhiji was arrested. The great Gandhiji, Mahatma, was arrested by the British. They said, you are the reason. Your teachings have been the reason why people came in masses and they burned down the station. He was imprisoned for 6 years. Chauri Chaura incidents became instrumental in putting Gandhiji behind bars for 6 years. And Gandhiji actually tells in front of the Lord in the court, "Oh Lord, I am contemptuous of making these killings happen. I am responsible for Chauri Chaura incidents. You can give, I repent for that. You can give me whatever punishment I deserve, I will accept it." Who would admit his mistake? He will always negate. Here is a man who used to call a spade a spade. He said, "I have done the mistake. I have failed in guiding and directing and controlling my people. So for the Chauri Chaura incident, put me in jail and punish me. Whatever punishment I deserve, it is acceptable to me." So after Gandhiji got arrested and most of the leaders went inside, there was a political vacuum in the country. Everything was getting guided very well. Most probably Jallianwala Bagh and Chauri Chaura, these two are incidences which put the national freedom a few decades late. Things did not happen. The entire non-cooperation movement came to an end. So there was a political vacuum in the country. What's vacuum? No fight. Government is quiet. All the culprits are getting, as per the British, they are getting tried. 19 people were hanged to death for Chauri Chaura. 19 people who had led the groups in torching the police station, they were hanged to death by the British courts. So everything was silent in the country now after Chauri Chaura. Chauri Chaura is a place in Uttar Pradesh. Many students say it's in Punjab. It's not in Punjab. Jallianwala Bagh is in Punjab. Chauri Chaura is in Uttar Pradesh. Now I told you that two leaders, they were unhappy with the provision in the non-cooperation movement declared by Gandhiji of withdrawing our legislators from the British legislatures. Our members, representatives from the British legislatures. They were Motilal Nehru and Chittaranjan Das. Then they got together and they declared, they advocated their re-entry into the assemblies. Everything is over. Let us get back into the assemblies. We will use those platforms now to speak. We don't have a platform at all. The entire movement is over now. We need those platforms to explain to the British our contentions. Let's get back. And with that, in 1923, a new party got formed. That was the Swaraj Party. Swaraj Party. Motilal Nehru founded the Swaraj Party. Another main leader had been Chittaranjan Das. Now days passed, 1927, 1927, there was a lot of pressure from Indians for Swarajya, and Motilal Nehru was insisting on dominion status. Give freedom to India, but we will be under the British Queen. Give us freedom, we will be under the British Queen. You will continue to rule us, but we will decide what is required for this country and we will rule our country ourselves. That is what is dominion status. India will remain as a dominion under the British. Between total control and on the other side freedom. This is halfway in between now. You are doing halfway in between. So one Simon Commission was appointed by the British. Simon was the head of the commission. It was appointed to come to India and study and find out what is it that Indian people require. What has to be done. So object was the study of effects of Government of India Act 1919. In 1919, British had brought some certain reforms. How have these reforms helped? Should there be any changes? All these were discussed. This is also called as, this Government of India Act of 1919 is also called as Montagu-Chelmsford Act. Montagu-Chelmsford Act. It did not do much, but the British had to come down a little bit from their authoritarian acts. Wide protests were there all over the country. When they arrived in 1928, Simon Commission arrived here. When they arrived here, there were wide protests. There's a vacuum in between. Now once again the country started taking steps to oppose any British move in curbing our sentiments and our will to rule ourselves. They said, Simon, go back. In Mumbai, as Simon Commission stepped on the Indian soil, they were asked to go back. Simon, go back. Bunds were organized, haratas were organized, procession. Whatever you saw in civil disobedience movement, this is a repetition now again. Lala Lajpat Rai dies at Lahore. Lala Lajpat Rai, one among Lal Bal Pal, I told you, he was leading a big rally, and the police, they were very cruel. They came down heavily on the rally, and with a club, they beat Lala Lajpat Rai on his head. Lala Lajpat Rai dies. Another incident now. This news spread everywhere, and in the entire country, there was a big protest now. So now the new constitution has to be drafted. It was a big challenge on the other side. You speak of dominion status. Even as you insist for dominion status, Indians should put up a constitution or something like that. This is what we need under the dominion status. This is what we desire. This is what we expect. It had to be very clear, crystal clear. So Motilal Nehru took up the responsibility. He said, I will get the draft made. And he did the job very well. And when the draft goes to Gandhiji, he too nods his head, it seems. Gandhi says, big job done. Whatever you have drafted, it's well drafted. You have done a big job, Gandhiji says. Dominion status for India, remember, Simon Commission, Montagu-Chelmsford reforms, and the protests here. Now India is crying at the loftiest state's voice, dominion status to be given to India. Now federal structure comes in. Federal structure, if we have to rule ourselves, what should be the structure within? Who should do what job? So a central government and the state governments. Whatever federal structure we have in the country, the seats were sown there by Motilal Nehru. Motilal Nehru was a great lawyer, a great academician. He was able to draft the constitution then. Here, all the abolitions for all the reservations for the minority groups, they were abolished in the constitution. This would do more harm to the country. Motilal Nehru said, don't have reservations. No reservations here. Then, creation of language-based regions. How should we divide the country into smaller pieces for governance? States. States should be divided according to the languages people speak. Why? People will be able to have communication, good communication, if the governance goes on in the local languages. And they too feel secure when each language makes a group and that turns into a state. Then ensuring human rights, a very important, it said one of the chief criteria of the dominion status being asked is asserting on our human rights. We don't want a foreign power to dictate on us. So human rights. Then democratic traditions, democratic institutions have to be developed within the country. People should know how to rule themselves. They should be responsible. They should be able to play their act well. At the same time, Britain's Prime Minister, he was a Labour Prime Minister. His name was Ramsay MacDonald. Ramsay MacDonald. He welcomed Motilal Nehru's draft. He said, we will look into it. It is something very interesting. We want to go through and take the required steps. We will decide on that. So outright rejection was not there by the British government. They accepted. There was no other way out. They had to accept. That's also there. But they accepted it. Congress convention in Lahore under Jawaharlal Nehru. In the meanwhile, in Lahore, Indian National Congress has its convention. Jawaharlal Nehru had been the president then. The convention adopts a revolutionary decision to demand Purna Swaraj for the country. It was 1930, and in the Lahore Convention, Indian National Congress calls for Purna Swaraj, complete Swaraj to the country, nothing less than that. So it was Jawaharlal Nehru who raised his voice at the Lahore Convention for Purna. Purna means total. Swaraj, independence. Total independence for the country. 1930 January. Yeah, let us continue in the next video.